in this video, we're going to be reviewing how functions work again, function calls, and a little bit about helper functions as well. And you know, function calls, I'm including some input and how that works exactly. Now, in this program, all we're doing is drawing a little cat face. But instead of just using circles and regular polygons, we put these inside of functions just so we can kind of see how functions work a little bit better. One thing to note is when I run this program right now, it just draws our little black cat. If I get rid of just this one line over here, nothing happens. And that's the first thing that I want to talk about over here, is that when you define functions, when you create functions, they don't execute right away. They don't do anything right away. So here on line 2, I made a function called drawCatFeatures. Here on line 10, I made a function called drawCatHead. But when I run, nothing happens. And that's because functions just define some actions that you might want to do later on when your program is running, or maybe when something happens in the canvas, in the case of like on-mouse press or on-mouse release functions. But by default, they don't do anything by themselves right away. You have to call them. To call a function, all you do is just type its name out, like drawCatHead, and then if the function has some input that it requires, it has some variables inside of the parentheses, you got to make sure to send it some values to store in those variables. So I'm going to send it 200, 200, and black, like we saw before. And now that I have the function call here, it's going to, from line 14, actually jump to line 10 and then execute the code in there. That's the only time you ever actually execute the code inside of a function, is when it is called. And so now when I run, we're back to having our cute little kitty cat over here. So now what I want to do is kind of go step by step and make sure we see everything that's going on, talk about helper functions. We'll make one more edit to the code, and that'll be it. Hopefully we're in and out within 5 minutes, probably 7 minutes though. So here, right, nothing happens. If we're running through this code, I hit execute. Line 1, it's a comment, nothing happens. Line 2, it said, oh, you're defining a function? Great, let me know when you call it. So then it will, from line 2, skip lines 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it's done. Line 8, there's nothing there, nothing happens. Line 9, another comment, nothing happens. Line 10, same situation. You defined a function, great. I'm not going to do anything with it yet. So we skip lines 10, 11, and 12. Line 13, there's nothing. On line 14, we call the function drawCatHead. So it's like, okay, you want me to run that function now. Let me jump back up to line 10 and let's get started. So on line 10, before I even actually run lines 11 and 12, I got to make sure I get my variables figured out. This is, the input that the function expects. And when I call a function, you got to make sure you send it the information that it needs. drawCatHead says, hey, I need 3 variables. I need one variable that I'm going to call, I need 3 values really, I should say, 3 values. One value that I'm going to call head X, another value that I'm going to call head Y, and a third value that I'm going to call C1. So we said, all right, we're going to pass you 200, so head X should be holding on to 200 now. We're going to pass you another 200, so head Y will now be holding on to 200. And then we're going to pass you the value black, and C1 is now holding on to the word black. Now that we've got all that sorted out, and these variables are holding on to values, now we actually start executing the function. So we jump inside the function, and hey, we're drawing a circle. Great. We're drawing a circle at the coordinates head X, head Y. Well, I know that head X and head Y are actually each holding 200 because that's what I sent to it. Radius of 30, and we're going to make the fill C1. Well, C1, we had passed the value black to it. Oh, okay, so we're going to make a black circle. Great. Very nice. And you can see that's that big circle over there, right? We made the first part of the cat head. Then on line 12, we actually call another function. And this is what we might call a helper function. It's a function that's going to do more work for that function that called it, right? So inside of the drawCatHead function, we can call another function. So, all right, we got to line 12. Great. We're actually now going to jump up to line 2, the drawCatFeatures function. Now notice, I sent it, I passed the values head X, head Y, and C1. So draw cat features, the three variables that it has here, X, Y, and color, they're going to be given the same values that head X, head Y, and C1 we're holding on to. And since my original call was 200, 200 black, X, Y, and color are now going to be holding on to 200, 200, and black. Then, all right, now we're going to execute this. I'm going to regular polygon at the coordinates X, Y. Great. The fill is pink, so we're not using the black color for this. I guess that must be the nose, right? So we made a nose at exactly 200, 200, the numbers that we sent. Now, when you're using helper functions, a lot of times you're going to be given only one value, right? The whole idea here is that to draw a cat head, I just need to say, hey, I want the cat head to be at 200, 200, but I don't want to deal with the details of where the eyes are every time, where the ears are every time. So when you're actually defining your function, you're going to have to get kind of, it'll look a little tricky. You're going to have to use the X and Y that they sent you and then edit them to be in the right spots. So this looks like one of the eyes. This looks like the left eye. I'm still using the 200 that they sent to my X, but I'm going to say 200 minus 10 to move my eye from 200 a little bit to the left, that 190. Same thing with the Y coordinate. I said minus 15 from the Y coordinate that you send me. And so that's going to move the eyeball from the original coordinate you sent, 200, 200, to be 10 to the left and 15 up. So minus 10, minus 15. And this is going to be very common when you're making more complex images with helper functions. You're just going to use the values that they sent you and edit by subtracting 10, adding 10, subtracting 25, or adding 20 or something like that to move the things relative to the values that were sent. And now you might ask, why am I doing all this difficulty? Couldn't I have just done circle, circle, regular polygon at, let me see, what are the coordinates? 190, 185, and then 210, 185. And yeah, if you just want to draw one cat head, but if I want to draw multiple cat heads, it'll be really nice to be able to just, once I've created the functions, and this is the whole idea why functions are kind of neat. Once I created the functions and did all the math to say, all right, I want the eye to be 10 to the left and 15 up. I want the ear to be 20 to the left and then 25 up. To draw a new cat, I can just say, hey, I'm going to make a cat at 100, 250, and this cat I'm going to make a sienna, and I run it. Boom. It was as easy as that to make a second cat. I only needed to create one new line in my code to draw a second cat out, which is pretty neat considering that it actually took, what, 5, 6 lines to make a cat? It only takes one to make it? That's pretty neat. I could make another cat. Maybe I'll make a blue cat, because why not? At 300, 100, and I'll make this one blue. And bada boom, where have I gone? Oh, I was looking at colors before. Boom, I made a blue cat up over there. So here is, that's pretty much it for a review on functions, how it works when you pass input to functions, and the idea of a helper function that you can actually call a function from within inside of another function. The only last thing that I'll say is you can, using this helper functions idea, is I can make an on mouse press call. That always takes a mouse X and a mouse Y coordinate. And from there, I can say, instead of just drawing cat heads in my code, I can say anytime I click, I want to call the draw cat head function at, well, I'm going to send it my mouse X and my mouse Y coordinate. So instead of just sending a 200, 200, or 100, 250 to be I'm going to draw this one cat over here, this one cat over there, I'm going to say anytime I click, I want to create a cat at the coordinates that I click. So I'm going to make it at the coordinates mouse X, mouse Y. That'll get passed on to the draw cat head, being held in the head Y and head X and head Y variables. And to make things easy, I'm just going to make it a single color. Let's make a yellow cat. Why not? And so now we have our 3 cats being called by the draw cat head functions, but anytime I do on mouse press, I can use my function calls and my function helper, my helper functions, to draw as many little cats as I want, which is pretty neat. These are almost looking kind of like chickens. Anyways, I was saying 7 minutes. I hope we made that timeline. Hopefully you understand functions and helper functions a little bit more after this video. And, I'll see you around in the next one.